All right, hey, what's going on everyone? Sam here from Lake Pro Tackle, guys. Today's video, we're gonna be going over my top 5 Shad Spawn lures. Shad Spawn is one of those really cool deals that doesn't happen a lot during the year. You usually get one in the spring, and then, typically there might be one in the fall time depending on your weather pattern. It really requires stable weather where those shad know they can go up, lay their eggs, and then those eggs can hatch. So, we're coming up on that shad spawn time here in Texas now, and for those of you who are a little farther north, your shad spawn should be on the way, so make sure to pick up some of these lures at lakeprotackle.com. For me, shad spawn generally will begin anywhere from around 64 to around 70 degrees. I found a really good shad spawn last weekend, and the water temps were around 62, around 61 degrees, and the shad were going crazy. Now, the sun was up. It was a very clear day, so that sun was really heating up the bank in the morning, and those shad related to it. So depending on where you are in the country, you might not have weather stable enough to produce a really good shad spawn. I know some lakes are completely different than others, where some lakes are really big on the shad spawn, some others might not even have that much of a shad spawn, but it's definitely a very situational thing. There are certain areas where shad will relate to a little bit better, especially near creek channels and stuff like that, where they can slide off into some deeper water if there is something like a cold front that happens, or if it gets really hot really quick, they can slide off into that deeper water and stay cooler. So, the shad spawn is a really cool time of the year where those fish go up to mate, and they are very, very vulnerable, and those bass love to key in on them. I've caught so many fish over the years on numerous baits, and we're gonna talk about my top 5 ones I like to catch them on, and these are gonna be very effective lures in the springtime. Not only that, but also especially during the shad spawn time. So we're gonna go ahead and kick it off with a topwater lure, and that is going to be a so we're gonna go ahead and kick it off. My number one choice isn't, I wouldn't rank them in any specific order, but my first one we're gonna go with is a topwater hollow body frog. This one here is a Jackal Kayara, sorry, and this is one of my favorite topwater frogs to actually throw, period. It's a very durable frog. It's got a very good hookup ratio. They come in a wide range of colors, but I'm gonna be trying to match the hatch. I've got a white frog here. It's a very, very small profile. It's half an ounce. It's 2.2 inches in length, which is a perfect shad size. So this guy right here, I'm gonna throw it right on the bank and usually just kind of let it sit. It's gonna hit the water on the bank, and I'm just gonna let it sit there for a little bit. After probably around 3 to 5 seconds, I'm gonna twitch, get it a little farther off the bank, and then just let it sit there. And these bass, what happens is when the shad are kind of spawning and they maybe stun themselves or do something to where they're not moving, they'll just sit there, and that's what you want to replicate with this frog here. So number one is gonna be the frog, topwater hollow body frog by Jackal Kayara Frog. All right, next up is gonna be kind of another surface lure. However, if the fish are really moving around really fast, keying in on the fish that are still moving around maybe the top of the water or something, top waters are all good and all. However, I love to throw a wakebait. This guy right here is the Strike King 2.5 wakebait. This is the oyster color, so it's gonna be a little bit closer to bone than white, and it's also got a little purple on it, or a little purple bluish hint on it. And this guy right here, it's a wakebait, so it's gonna really run right under the surface of the water. And what I like to do with this one, kind of similar to that frog, is I'm gonna work it real slow and then give it a little twitch and pause. Work it real slow under the surface of the water, twitch and pause it, and that's gonna get you a lot of reaction bites. The very loud rattle in this bait will attract a lot of fish to your lure. So in terms of the fish finding it, they're not gonna have an issue with it. The trick is to get them to choose your lure over the copious amounts of shad that are moving around them. So number 2 is gonna be the KVD 2.5 wakebait. Number 3, let's go ahead and go with another moving bait. That's just gonna be your regular Megabass Vision 110. This color here is GP Stain Reaction. I really like this color. It's just a real crystal clear shad looking color. It's got a white iridescent underbelly, and it's got a red eye on it. So this bait right here, you're gonna work it like you would any other jerk bait almost any other time of the year. Typically, I'm gonna be working them a little bit faster in the shad spawn. So we started off with something that I don't like to move that much, and then something that I like to move and then pause. And then this guy right here, I'm gonna constantly twitch it around. I'm gonna keep moving it as fast as I can, and then hopefully, you know, I'm gonna get a bass to react to it. So, you know, the jerkbait, I don't have to say much about it. You can fish it a wide variety of different ways. You can slow it down. The great thing about it is it's a suspending jerkbait. If anything, it might be just slightly slow sink. I'm gonna be throwing it on a little bit heavier line though in the shad spawn, just because the shad are typically spawning around harder cover like stumps, clay banks, and stuff like that where there are a lot of snags. So typically, I might even throw 14 to 15 pound line on this. Typically, I'm throwing either 10 or 12, but sometimes I might move up to a little bit heavier line to keep it actually a little higher in the water column as well. But, you know, to get them out of that nasty stuff, sometimes you got to go with a little heavier line. Next up, I'm gonna go with another, I guess, hard bait, and that's gonna be a spinnerbait. You know, this guy right here is the Santone Got 5 designed by Matt Heron. This Got 5 spinnerbait is super amazing. It's got a nice, smaller profile. The skirt slims down really, really well. I like to put a little tiny swim bait on the back of it. I don't need much action. The skirt does a lot of the action for itself. The blades are a very healthy size, you know, about that 2-inch blade, willow leaf blade, and then a small Colorado blade to add some extra thump. This one here, I'm gonna work at the surface of the water, just like the wake bait. It's gonna be going right under the surface of the water. I'm creating a wake with the blade there. And that's just kind of how I like to fish it. I'm typically fishing that on a 7'3" to 7'5" medium heavy fast action rod with around 15 or 17 pound line. Again, I want to keep it up at the surface, so I want to make sure my line size is good enough for that, and I also have maybe a rod long enough so I can almost just reel with my rod tip up, and it's going to create that waking at the surface. Next up, we finally got a soft plastic in here. You know, shad spawn's a great time of the year. However, I don't throw a lot of soft plastics during that time just because I'm trying to cover water really effectively, maximize the, you know, amount of area I can cover during that shad spawn because it doesn't last forever. You know, the longest shad spawn I've ever seen is maybe around 10, 15 minutes. Now, I know around the country, again, you can find some really long shad spawns, but, you know, here in Texas, once that sun gets up and it gets hot real quick and those shad will go back deep. But my number 5 choice for shad spawn is gonna be the KVD caffeine shads. These are in the 5-inch version, and this is really great. I'm gonna fish it weightless on around 15 to 17 pound line again, maybe a 7'2" to 7'4" rod, just so I have enough length, because typically these fish are moving very, very fast. So you want to have a very, not very long rod, but a typically longer than normal rod for something like a Texas rig, just so you can catch up with those fish. Again, always going to have a fast gear ratio when I'm fishing any sort of plastic, just so I can just catch up to the fish, you know? You got to do that. So these guys here, this color is Smoky Shad, one of my favorites. I'm going to have it on a weightless Texas rig EWG style hook around a 3/0 or 4/0, depending on the sink rate you want it to be. I like to throw a 3/0 when I like to have it at the surface, and a 4/0 super line when I want to get it a little bit deeper, kind of subsurface around 1 to 2 foot of water. So those are my top 5 choices, guys. If you like them, head over to lakeprotackle.com, pick some up for yourself. We really appreciate it. If you enjoyed today's video, leave a like on it, and if you want to see more videos like these, subscribe to the channel. You know, I woke up to 700 subscribers today, and I am so blessed for each and every one of you that have subscribed to the channel and, you know, supporting the channel that way. You know, next goal is going to be 800. You know, if we can get 5, no, let's do 10 likes on this video. That'd be super amazing, guys. Thanks for all the support. We'll catch you next time.